Hey everyone, how's it going? Shuffle's back here with another video, and it is time to do the tier list. So, I know it's been a while. The last one was the first quarter of 2020. This tier list is for the second quarter of 2020. To save you guys all some trouble, because I know last time some people were confused, the entire list is there, all the units are there. The reason sometimes last I saw in the comment section after the last one that you hadn't seen a certain unit was because you didn't watch far enough into the video. So if you are just looking for a specific unit, go to like later in the video and you'll see them because we are starting at the bottom of the list and working our way up. So hopefully that helps. I am going to go over every single 4-star and 5-star in the game. So this is going to be a long video, but hopefully you guys enjoy it. It is a lot of work to put these together, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's just jump right into it. All right, so starting at the very bottom, we have D tier. We're going to go all the way up to triple S. So we're going to have, and there's a little surprise at triple S. So there is basically broken units slightly above. Then we have triple S, which is going to be like best in the game OP. Then we're going to have double S, which is going to be like obviously really good. Um, Down to S, which is going to be like basically must build. Then A, which is going to be, I guess, very good. Then B would be good. A C would be average, below average, and D is basically not usable. So, leading things off with our D units, we don't have very many of them, thankfully, which is a tribute to the game and letting people, or I guess showing that Smilegate, at least to some degree, has created some form of balance. Um, so we have Xeno and Zerato. Honestly, you don't need to build either of them. If you have Xeno, I mean, you can force use him. I'm actually going to be putting out an RTA video where we force use him in Legend RTA, but it's not worth it. There's a million units that you could use ahead of him that are better, and you need the gear more than he does. Zerato, he's a great imprint for Champion Zerato, but that's about it. As for Saul, you can use him in Golem, or in Golem. No, that was right. You can use him in Golem. But I mean, there's just better units out there that you can use for Golem. Same with Raid, same with Lab, same with everything. So yes, he can do the job for those, but first of all, that is the easiest dungeon to farm. It's the least necessary dungeon to farm, and there's really just no reason to build him ever. Same with Corvis. He used to be very good, but now there's no point in building him. He had a job, but once they nerfed him, he went from being broken to being useless, so no reason to build him either. Same with Haste. He's another one that we actually geared up and used in Legend RTA just for fun, but he really just doesn't cut it. There's a lot of fire units that are better if you're looking for a fire damage dealer. Maya, again, a great imprint for her ML counterpart. Um, and then Mercedes and Quazu, neither of them you need to build. So moving on to the nature units, we have another one who's a great imprint in Fat Cat. And then we have Leo as well. Leo can stun. Like, he's another unit you could potentially force use him, but really it's just not necessary. I don't want to spend any more time on this tier because these are just units unless you're really late game and you're just bored and you're trying to force something to work, you really don't need to be even looking at these units. Just save them, put them in your storage, and that's kind of where they belong. Moving on to the C tier, these are units that are usable, but there's probably better units you could put that gear on. So starting off with Collie, first of all, if you have an Assassin Collie, you should triple S her first before you consider building regular Collie. If you're absolutely desperate for a Wyvern damage dealer, you could build her. Keep in mind we do have a new Wyvern dungeon coming out eventually, so I don't know if it'll have to be all water at that point, but we'll have to see. She can be a very good damage dealer if you want to build her, but I think there's just so many better options, and getting other units is quite easy in this game, and you'll probably get something that you should put that gear on more. She's a speed-based damage dealer, so think Assassin Sid, Assassin Collie, Cowrick. Any of those units would be better off with her gear than she is. So yes, she can be good, but her gear is better used somewhere else. Very similar for Clarissa. There's a lot of AoE damage dealers out there, and there's really no reason to use her unless you're using her for a Wyvern defense break. But at that point, you've got like Furious and the Terranor Guard who do her job better. Really no point to building her unless you're super early game and you need an AoE damage dealer, and then you want her to be able to transition into your Wyvern team. That's fine, but otherwise probably not worth it. Along those lines as well is Crowsit. Crowsit, another one, he can tank Wyvern really well, but outside of that, there's a lot of units that can do that. Whether you've just got him with Aureus and he's on the side protecting your Angelica, or if you've got him in front. Either way, there are a lot of units that can do what he does and do it better. Think Crowl, think Tywin, think all those guys. They'll all work better. And finally, Roman. Poor Roman got a buff finally, but it was around the same time as Besar got his buff, and with Besar and Gerardo as just light years ahead of him, we could potentially move him up the tier list, but because there's units that are just so much better than him, there's really no point in ever building him, so I left him in C tier. Moving on to the fire units, we have Charlotte after her remake. Now, a lot of people said her remake was a buff. A lot of people said her remake was a nerf. Honestly, I haven't seen anyone use her yet, so she's kind of a wild card here. She may be one of those units that ends up moving in the future. It kind of depends how you used her. Her AoE skill 1 could be really interesting. I wouldn't be surprised to see her get another buff and become broken at some point. But now with ML Charlotte in the game, I think most people that had her probably fed her in ML Charlotte anyway. But we'll have to see. I know a lot of people don't particularly like her design, and that's part of the reason why no one builds her. But we will see what happens. I'm unsure of how she's going to be after this change. Moving on, we have ML Era. ML Era is a great mage. She's got an attack buff. She's got an AoE. Just her damage isn't spectacular, and there's a lot of better AoE damage dealers out there, and attack buffers, and a lot of them aren't fire, where there's not really a lot of use for fire in the meta right now outside of RTA. So I left her down at C rank just because she can be used and she can be very good, but there's just better options out there. Up next, we have Dingo. We have Dingo. He's another unit. He can be a decent bruiser. He's got some sustain. He's got a whole bunch of stuff in his kit. He could be made to be very good, but that same gear that you're going to have to put on him would be just so much better used on someone else. I really don't think it's worth building him. Up next is Cirilla. Cirilla was a limited unit, for those of you that don't know. She's okay. She can do some damage, but again, she's one of those units you'd plug into Golem, and like, at what point are you having a hard time finding units for Golem? Probably never. If you have ever farmed it. I think I've farmed Golem maybe 3 times ever since this game came out, so no need to build her either. And finally, we have Crazy Eyes. Kuwana, she is an interesting unit. She synergizes really well with fire units. Unfortunately, same thing. Fire units, man, they just don't... There is no fire meta, at least not yet. So maybe if the meta shifts over and it becomes fire dominant at some point, then maybe she will be good. But until then, she will remain in C tier. Moving on to the wind units, we have Ludwig and Silk. Ludwig is another one similar to Era, in that a very good AoE damage dealer, but he's kind of niche, and there's just no reason to put your best gear on him, and he would need your best gear in order to be successful. And at that point, why are you not putting your best gear on one of the better AoE nukers in the game instead of Ludwig? I just don't see the purpose behind putting your best gear on him. Yes, he can do a crap ton of damage. Yes, he can work, but so can everybody else. So I wouldn't recommend putting it on him when you have better options. And poor Silk is another one. I think Silk's kit's actually really good. Speed buff and slow. She's got a very interesting kit, but it's kind of one of those things where you only get 4 units on your team, and there's just not really room for her in most cases. If you really wanted to make a control comp, I'm sure you could make her work. But again, you'd have to put some of your best speed on her, and taking that gear off of someone like an Oxlots or a Besar or a Faithless Lytic Ax just doesn't seem worth it to me. Moving on to the light and dark units, we have Roman and we have Warrior Leo. Roman with the AoE silence on his skill 3, that's Oxlot's skill 3. Like, if that's your skill 3, really? Oxlot's skill 3 is terrible, but he never has to use it, and I think it's actually his worst skill. Roman's skill 1 is decent, but with such a terrible skill 3, I actually I had him lower on the list. I moved him up because I felt bad that he was below Leo, and I don't think anyone should be below Leo. So, moving on to Leo, until we get a unit like in Summoner's War with Sierra that can detonate bombs, I don't see a place for him. I'm sure at some point he'll be good, because I'm sure they'll add a unit that can detonate bombs, like kind of like what they did with Bleed. But until that happens, he will remain in C tier as well. Moving up to the B tier, actually I'm going to leave that. We'll start over with Water again. We'll start with Says. Says a fantastic AoE unit. If you're going from like an Era or a Clarissa, he's definitely a step up because he does get the extra turn. He's another unit, very, very strong, but he is another one that you probably don't want to invest your best gear in unless you're early game because there's just better options out there. Moving on to Yoona, free to play connection unit that you can build. I really like Yoona. I think she's fantastic for TOA farming. If you want to speedrun TOA, she's probably the best unit out there, other than maybe Lena, who is a 3-star. But since you have her already, most likely, and you probably have her imprinted and at least 5-star, she's a great option for that. You can also force use her in other places, but she's probably not your best option. Kind of similar to Silk. Uh, Although I have seen some really interesting teams featuring her with Lilius and some sort of high attack damage dealer in RTA. But outside of that, she is kind of niche. And as with most of the units in B tier, they are very good, but only in their niche roles. They can't be used in a wide variety of places. Completely ruining what I just said is Rose. Rose is somebody that you can actually use everywhere. She's just not the best at what she does, but she's she's an ultra flexible unit. You can use her in a lot of places. You could definitely build her for Wyvern. You could build her for Arena. You could build her for Guild War. You could build her for RTA. You could build her for a lot of things. She's got a lot of utility, and I actually really like Rose. And once I get a few more imprints, I'll probably build her up as well. Next up on the list, we have Furious and Corrine. I'm going to put them both in the same grouping because basically they're specialty Wyvern units. They're both great Wyvern defense breakers. You probably won't use them anywhere else. Corrine, I know I used early game everywhere. I used her in Raid, I used her in Lab, I used her everywhere. But late game, she kind of falls off. Her damage is okay because you can go skill 2 into skill 3. But she needs that defense break in order to do well. So if she doesn't land the defense break, then a lot of her damage is mitigated. I just think there's better options out there in terms of nukers when you look at units like Watcher Sheree and stuff like that. Moving on to the next one, we have C-Dom. We have regular Dom. Dominielle, Water Dominielle. She is a great CC unit now and does have some damage reflection, so she did move up the list this quarter, which is really nice for her. Unfortunately, her CC isn't 100% like ML Era, so ML Era does edge her out in that regard. But if you are looking for some AoE crowd control, she is one of the best units in the game for that specifically. And if you are trying to find a Spez team and you want somebody to run as your crowd control, she may be a good option. Moving on to the fire tier, or the fire part of the list, we have Sirmia and we have Melissa. Two very hard-hitting damage dealers. Sirmia, one of the hardest nukers in the game. And Melissa, her damage multipliers are crazy. They're really, really strong. And she can give herself extra turns as well. Both great fire nukers. Problem is that they're fire. So yes, they can be used in RTA and they can be used in Guild War. But outside of that, they really don't have a place. You probably won't put your best damage dealer gear on them just because they are fire. But other than that, they are very strong units, just a little bit niche. Cassius, go lay down, buddy. Sorry, my dog's interrupting. Up next, we have Fire Lytica. Now, Fire Lytica did just get a buff, and it is a really nice buff. Unfortunately, they brought out Faithless Lytica at the exact same time, and she's just so much better that it prevents Fire Lytica from moving up. Fire Lytica is still really good. She was amazing for me in from Abyss 80 to 90 when I was doing that. She's complete lockdown unit. You can use her in raid. You can use her everywhere. Very, very good. You can even use her in PvP. She's actually crazy flexible. You can use her almost everywhere. She's just outclassed by Analytica. But other than that, if you are looking for someone with insane base speed and somebody to take first turn and lock down a specific unit, she is one of the best in the game for that specific role. Up next, we have Sheree and we have Suren. I'm going to put them in the same category because they're both there for one reason and one reason only, and that is their speed imprints. Their speed imprints are crazy strong. 14 speed for Suren, and I believe 12 for Sheree. No, wait. Maybe it's 14 for both of them. I think it is 14 for both of them. I think it's Hildred that's 12. So, and we'll get to him a little bit later. But yeah, 14 speed imprints, very strong. If you're having a hard time getting first turn, which I know in the Discord has been a bit of an issue, people are saying, "Hey, I'm 250 speed, but I can't get out of Challenger Arena because I'm getting outsped all the time." A lot of the easiest way to fix that is just make a team and put a speed imprint in there. So if you're going Oxlots, it's getting outsped. Go Oxlots Sheree or Oxlots Suren or Oxlots Hildred, and all of a sudden you won't get outsped anymore. So great option there. They don't even need to have great gear. They just need to be imprinted. Up next, we have Cowrick, a new unit, and a harder one to place on the list. I considered not quite putting him on the list yet, but I feel like I've had him long enough, and I was free gear removal, so I got to test him a little bit. I found his damage to be ultra underwhelming. I am really disappointed. I'm a huge fan of speed-based damage dealers, as we talked about with Collie. I probably put him higher on the list than her just because he has the ability to lock down a Besar. But again, there's a lot of units that can do what he does just better. Like, why would you not use Lytica? Why would you not use ML Lytica? Why not use Silk? All those units can do the same thing as him in terms of locking down a Besar. They just do it better. And his skill 3 damage is kind of bad, which surprises me because other speed-based damage dealers, their damage is really good. The multiplier on the speed portion of that is really strong. I was really looking forward to him because he is a speed-based damage dealer, but his damage just right now is not cutting it. Moving over to the nature units or the wind units, we start with Rin, very much a specialty unit, but when you use her, she's very good. You can kind of use her everywhere, jack of all trades. She's the only healer in the game that also has a defense break, which is kind of interesting. The problem is her heal's kind of weak, so you're using her more for utility. Yeah, you would probably still have to bring a healer into your team if you need a heal. She won't quite suffice as a soul heal, but still very good support unit. Up next, we have Purchase, regular Purchase. He definitely stays relevant because of arena defense, and I have seen him used a little bit in RTA, although he is HP based, so he's used less in RTA than he would be in arena, but still very strong in arena. I used him many times in my legend arena defense, and I really like him. He's strong. He's got non-stop revenges. If you're working on a revenge team, he is a good option. Up next is regular Lots. Unfortunately, he doesn't get a lot of love because his sibling, Oxlots, is so much stronger. But regular Lots is actually really strong. A little bit niche because he's a wind healer, but other than that, he's very good. He's got the same attack bar boost, which is really nice. A lot of people will run double Lots teams in PvP, so maybe consider him for that. Outside of that, he's kind of an early game healer, but he can still be used very successfully. Next is Green Armin, and Green Armin is actually kind of an interesting unit. I know she's been getting some love recently. She got a relatively reliable stun with her skill 1, which isn't very common in this game. And I think it's 100%. I'm not really sure, but I think it's 100%. It's a very high chance if it's not. But yeah, she can be very strong, and obviously being a tank, she can be one of your like Aureus holders or Adamant Shield or something like that. You could use her in PvE or PvP successfully. Somewhat flexible, not probably your best option. Like if you have like a Fallen Cecilia, obviously you're going to build that first. Or if you have a ML Armin, you're probably going to build that first. Or even a Fire Cecilia. But if you don't have a tank, she is a great option. And finally, for the wind units, we have Pavel, and I did make a video on Pavel as using him as a booster for CDOM in RTA, in basically being able to boost and then being able to delete a Belena. And he can do the job. The main problem with him is that with all the revenges out there, if there's a Charles in the team, you're gonna get revenged. If there's a Belena in the team and you don't manage to kill, you're gonna get revenged. If there's an ML Ken in the team, you're gonna die before you get your skill 3 off. There's just so many things that are gonna kill him, and he's so squishy that odds are if you burn into his skill 2, he's not gonna survive to do his skill 3. It's just way too easy to counter. So you could potentially last pick him, and that's what I was doing. But he's ultra niche, and his damage isn't very good either. They either need to boost his damage or move his attack buff over to be a passive or something like that. Because although he can be used, he is somewhat niche and kind of difficult to use, to be honest. Up next, we have the light and dark units. First up, we have Fighter Maya, who did just get a buff as well, and I considered moving her up, but honestly, I can't do it. She's good in RTA. I think that gives her a bit of a buff in RTA. But anywhere else, her damage is just severely lacking. She's a great light tank, which I think you need for Guild War. Like a light tank is mandatory for Guild War. You need at least one, either Purges or her or Kickrat. Even like a Maid Chloe if you really want to. But you need some sort of light tank. I think it's very important. But I don't think that's enough to move her up the tier list. I have seen some really strong ones in RTA. They can do a lot of damage. And with the auto extra turn, it is a little bit scary. But I think it's just relatively easy to counter at this point. We'll see. I could definitely see her moving up the tier list at some point, though, as people try different builds on her. I just don't see it happening yet. Up next, we have Guider Aether. And Guider Aether is a unit that I actually use on my arena offense. If I've attacked you recently in arena, you've probably seen a Guider Aether on your defense log and wondering what the hell is going on. She's one of the few units that, first of all, she fills many roles, right? So she's a mage, so she can hold book. She's got an attack buff with her skill 3, and she's got nuke potential with her skill 3. All three of those things are the exclusive equipment is the attack buff, by the way. It isn't naturally in her kit, so you will have to get that. But being able to go, say if I'm going to run her and Lilibet, I could go her skill 3, burn into it. Because she's carrying book, it's only 10 souls, so it gives me the extra damage and the attack buff. And then Lilibet now has an attack buff, and I can burn into that as well, just with the one book, which is really nice. So, great combination there. I run them with CDOM and Lytica, and it works really, really well. So, probably not deserving of being much higher on this list, because it is very, very niche, but it's definitely usable, and one of those units you can build and build the team around if you really want to. Up next is Suren. ML Suren is an interesting unit. I kind of like the kit, and I kind of don't. I've never really seen her used overly successfully. I know a lot of people have tried to bring her in to counter my specific RTA comp because she can't just be one-shot, but she doesn't seem to really do enough other than not getting one-shot. You know what I mean? Like, you could just put a tank in there, and it would be the same thing. So I just don't. She got a very unique kit, and I like it. I feel like it's probably going to get buffed in the future, and that's probably a good thing. I think she needs it. Up next, we have Dark Corvis, the worst of the MLNat 5s by far. Speaking of units that need a buff, he's. I know a lot of people love him, and it's because they can win Guild War with him. You just run Izaria him and 2 heals, or you run 3 heals and him, but like realistically, you could probably run 4 heals and it would do the same thing and take the same amount of time. Just because you can win with him doesn't make him a great unit. I think he really needs a buff. I have him on my baby account, and every time I use him, I'm disappointed. It's just he's really, really boring and doesn't really do anything. And you need souls in order to be able to kill anybody. It's just all around kind of a bad unit. I really hope he's not in the next Mystic rotation because everybody's gonna summon for him and be disappointed. But yeah, hopefully he gets a buff at some point because I do think he really needs it. Really, really needs it. And finally, for the B tier, our final unit is ML Crozet. Very unique pick. Actually, touching on Corvis really quick. He is in the B tier. Like, I know I'm kind of ragging on him, but I'm ragging on him because he's an ML Nat 5, right? Like, there's other Nat 5s in here, and I think they're balanced and they're in a good spot. But for an ML Nat 5, I just think he should be better. So, yeah, he can serve his purpose. You can use him. But I just... You know what I mean? Like, he's an ML Nat 5. Why is he on the same tier as, like, somebody like Suren or Guide or Aether? I just don't think that's fair for people that actually finally pulled an ML Nat 5 and they got him. I think he needs a buff. Anyway, so back to Crozet. I actually really like Crozet. I use him on my baby account. I use him over Dark Corvus, actually, because he's got a cleanse. He's got stuns with his skill 1. He's got a lot of utility. He's got damage reduction. All-around team player. I really like him. For a 4-star, he's solid. He's not spectacular by any means, but if you want to bring in a squishy unit and you want them to survive, especially in Guild War, he is a great option. And he also actually pairs really well with Spez, something that I didn't consider when I first started using him. All right, let's move up to the A tier. Slowly drag this down. First up on the water side, we have Chloe and Luna and Kize. I'm going to group all three of these together because they are all fantastic Wyvern units. I think if I had to pick the best out of the three, it would probably be Chloe, then Kize, then Luna. I really don't like the unpredictability of Luna, so I really don't like her. She does have a defense break, which is nice, but if you're desperate for a defense break, you can get Chloe's exclusive equipment and do that. But otherwise, Luna just... The unpredictability of her skill 1 damage going from a min hit doing no damage to doing huge damage with a max hit, I really don't like it. It feels like whenever you need it, she always min hits, and whenever they have 1 HP left, she max hits. So I'm not a big fan of Luna personally, but I do see the value there, and she is a top tier Wyvern unit. If you are looking for somebody to do Wyvern, Kize as well, great shield breaker if you happen to get to the shield. Also, you could prevent the shield. Also now with the shield on her stealth skill, she can be really scary in Guild War as well. Plus the damage build in Guild War and potentially in RTA. I do have an extra one laying around that I do plan on building if I ever get any molas, because I think she can be a lot of fun in RTA, but she would be a little bit niche, similar to Chloe. Moving on to Chloe, again, she is obviously top tier. She's got a defense break, she's got a stun, she's got nail, she's got a strip, depending on what exclusive equipment you use. Also, the nail makes it so that every skill that's used on the unit with nail also gets stunned, so it can be actually quite good in PvP. I've started using her in RTA, in like top 20 RTA, and it's working really well against like K runs. So I can either proc Kieran's passive with it, or I can use her skill 2 to strip. Either way is really, really nice, and kind of is a hard counter to Kieran. And then even if neither of them happen to work and they both get resisted, she's still a water unit, and it's going to be hard for him to one-shot her. Moving on, we have Angelica, probably the best pure healer in the game. She always will be. Monty's right up there as well, but this is only 4 stars and 5 stars. So her and Destina are definitely the top 2 healers in the game, especially early game because you can use her in Wyvern. She does fall off a little bit later game just because you don't really need that kind of skill anymore, and her base speed is a little bit slow. You just don't necessarily need that heal anymore, but she's fantastic all the way through the game. I think I even used her in a couple of the floors for Abyss 90 to 100. I can't really remember, but I'm pretty sure I did. Moving on to the fire units, we have regular Robbie, who now makes an appearance on the list due to RTA and RTA only. She didn't really have a place in the game other than Guild War until RTA came out, and I do see a lot of her in RTA. She's a nice bruiser. She's got an AoE stun on her skill 3, and is very, very good. Acades as well, with the AoE cleanse and the invulnerability and the turn cycling and the skill cooldown reduction, is amazing. I think one of the more underrated units in the game. People just kind of sleep on her because they forget how many times she's gotten buffed, and the fact she's a fire unit, she kind of got swept under the rug. And finally, for the fire units, we have Cecilia, who is incredibly strong now. I actually feel like maybe we should move her up to S. I want to give it a little bit of time and see if she kind of catches on with people. But for now, she is going to be staying at A rank. Just because of kind of where she is right now. Being a fire unit, she's still a little bit niche. And I know I tried to use her in Arena, and it just doesn't really work because people kind of underestimate her. And yeah, you might get a higher win percentage, but you get attacked so many more times because people are just bringing Belena comps in that it's really hard to use her anywhere other than RTA. So I'm going to leave her at A for now, but her AoE immunity as a tank is something we've never seen before, and it's incredibly underrated, and she does do the same damage as like an ML Lytica. So keep that in mind. Moving on to the wind units, we have regular Belena. Still very strong. I never really see her anymore despite her exclusive equipment. I'm surprised we don't see her anymore. I know she got a lot of love during Abyss 90 to 100 because she can do a lot of those bosses she can't be used on because they don't suffer damage based on their own HP. But the ones that can, she was very, very good for. And she just ripped through some of those stages, providing reliable defense breaks along the way, and is very good. Up next is Baikin. Now, Baikin has dropped a little bit just because she can't be used in RTA. So a lot of people have taken their best gear off of her, at least the top players, because they can't use her in RTA. So she's getting no love right now. She can still be used in Guild War, but if you're an RTA player, you probably don't have her geared at all. If they do rerun the Guilty Gear banner at some point and they decide to add them to RTA, then she'll probably make a comeback, but for now, she will stay at A. Speaking of units in A rank, the final unit for the wind units is Vivienne. Vivienne actually moved down the list a little bit just because there's so many other things going on right now, and she doesn't really have a place in RTA as of yet. I thought she would maybe be good in RTA, but I don't see it working. I've seen a couple people try her, and it never really works. I don't think she's bad. I think she's fantastic for A11 speed teams and Banshee speed teams if you need one. But other than that, I don't think that she's like OP or broken in any way. So she gets a solid A. She's still really strong with the 3-turn attack buff and immunity, but I don't think she's by any means broken. Moving on to the light darks, we do get a lot of the light dark 4-stars now jumping into this list as we are getting into the upper tier of units in the games. And first up is going to be Sheree. Probably the best single target pure damage dealer in the game, as he does have ignore defense, unconditional, and 100% on his skill 3, and he's got a speed imprint, which makes him very, very strong. One of the better units to pull in terms of ML 4-stars in the game for sure. If you have him, you should definitely build him because he will be great in all sorts of PvP. Probably not PvE, but for PvP, he's top tier. Up next is ML Era, the best crowd control unit in the game. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of crowd control needed right now, so she doesn't really get a lot of love, especially since she got nerfed. But she's the only unit with an AoE 100% stun, so there's that, and she can do decent damage and hold book, all of which are good things. But yeah, she can't really move up the list anywhere until we get some sort of PvE content that needs crowd control. If we don't get that, then I can't see her moving up unless she gets a buff. Moving on, we have ML Ball, who we see a lot in RTA now. People were ragging on him, saying how bad he is. You could potentially move him ahead of Air now, just because of his utility in RTA. The only reason I didn't is because Tenebria is a thing, Fire Tenebria, and I think she's the same as him, only better now. She's gotten so many buffs that she kind of overstepped him, and his rule gets a little bit reduced. But he's still very strong and element neutral, so you can't ignore that. And you can use him on arena defense. I did use him regularly on my legend arena defense as well, and he was a big help to me. So if you have him, definitely build him. Don't just put him in storage. Moving on, we have Wanderer Silk. We talked about her a little bit earlier with the crowd control. It's single target crowd control, but it's outstanding. It's got a strip, plus a slow, plus a silence, plus an attack bar reduction, all in the same skill. And she's got incredible base speed on top of it. It's slightly better than Lytica, which is why she gets an A rank instead of a B rank. I use her in Raid. You can use her in PvP and, well, all PvP. You could use her in Arena, Guild War, and RTA, all of which would be good, especially because of her base speed. Moving on, we have Bingo, and the reason that his counterpart Fire Dingo isn't higher is probably because they all become imprints into Bingo. Very, very strong. He's got a heal, he's got invulnerability, he's got an attack buff. If you are going to force build Ludwig, he is the best Guild War partner for Ludwig by far because he's got the invulnerability and the attack buff. Plus, he's got heals and he's got big damage. I actually had an interesting fight in RTA where I think the enemy brought Oxlots. I forget the whole team, but it was basically Oxlots, Bingo, and BBK. And I was like, oh, well, as long as I ban the BBK, he's got the 2 attack buffers, but he's got no damage. And he went Oxlots into Bingo, burned into his skill 3, gave himself greater attack buff, and then nuked my entire team. And I never got to move. Totally caught me off guard. His damage can be really good if you build him for that. And then next up, we have General Purchase, another great unit for all sorts of PvP. You can also, he camps really well in Raid, which was a little surprising, but you can use him there as well. And yeah, PvP, he's top tier. He's got attack bar boost for your team. You can use him in Wyvern. He's got an attack buff. He's got a 2-person stun, so he pairs very, very well with Spez as well. He's in a lot of Spez comps. So definitely look at him. He also has a very interesting dual attack increase as his imprint, so you may want to look at him for that as well. Moving on to the dark units, we have Shooting Star Arcades, the cause of some of the highest stress moments I've ever had in RTA, courtesy of Kieran and Immortal Euphine, but we will not talk about that any further. She's a great revive, she's got a good heal, she's got a great burn. She's better in RTA than she is in Guild War, and I think she's very good in Guild War. Definitely underestimated in terms of RTA. She's when you can use her on manual, she's very, very strong. Up next, we have Rin, and I think ML Rin is very good. I really like her. She's a great counter to a lot of things, a lot of buff teams. She got 2 strips, plus she can do damage if you want her to, or you can put her on Dreamblade and make her tanky. The flexibility of her is just incredible. I've gone from using her as a stripper and a tank to using her as a Kieran destroyer in RTA. She can be used almost any way you want her to be. Plus, the added bonus to that is not only the strip, but she also gives your team immunity, as well as whatever else she steals. So if, say, you're going into a Kieran, you can steal his invulnerability. Or, sorry, his Undying buff. You can steal invulnerability. You can steal Chloe's revive and give it to your entire team. You go up against a Fire Ken and strip his speed buff from him and give it, all of a sudden your entire team has a 2-turn speed buff. She can be a good counter to anybody that buffs at all. Up next, we have Kitty Clarissa with her Cleanse, Strip, and Auto team up with her skill 1. I really like Kitty Clarissa. It's unfortunate she's not a tank and she's a warrior, but she's very, very strong. If you build her with high res, she can dominate a fight for you. We actually used her in RTA the other day as well, and I really like her. Moving on, we have Celestial Mercedes, who a lot of people aren't really sure about. I did put out a video about her if you want to check that one out. I think she is hands down the best AoE nuke when paired with Besar Tywin. So if you're making a Besar Tywin team and you need a nuker to go with it, she is best in game at that spot because you do not need to burn into her skill 3 in order to get max damage. And if you want to put Necro-Undyne on her, it will also give you enough. She can take 2 turns, which is really nice. Just warning though, those 2 turns cannot kill a Hildred. So It doesn't catch him. He still will go before you. He'll cut in between. Up next, we have Fat Cat, the king of all things evasion. Um, he's good for obvious reasons. He's still very strong. You could argue he could maybe be one rank higher, but you could also you could also say that he's just there for the evasion, doesn't really do much. I have him somewhere in the middle. I've got him very strong at A rank, and I think he fits right in there. Up next is Assassin Sid. He doesn't have the best damage in the game, but he has insane base speed, and he's a great counter to certain comps, including comps that use a lot of souls or comps that are just trying to go first. You can pick him and try and outspeed them. Very, very good unit, and with okay damage. And if he happens to get a greater attack buff, and you can burn into his skill 3, he does have one-shot capable damage. Up next, we have Shadow Rose, the last unit in the A tier. Great unit, great for speed runs of both Banshee and A11. I really like her. I think she could be very good for RTA. I just don't think a lot of people have Mola her because of the severe Mola shortage that Smilegate refuses to do anything to do about. I think I said that right. But anyway, I think she could be very good if you do have her Mola. You could definitely use her there. She's got a nice kit, and all around I think she's a very good unit. Alright, now we're going to move into the S tier. Oops. So, moving into the S tier, we are... Why did that move after the fact? That was weird. Moving into the S tier, we're now into the, these units are OP. If you have any of these units from here on forward, you should build them. No questions asked. So first up is Cerise. Maybe I shouldn't say OP and then say Cerise. But I digress. Anyway, you should build Cerise. Why should you build Cerise? She is a great counter to a lot of things meta right now. She's solid on arena defense. She's got an AoE slow, which is very scary. It's very underrated. She also has that restrict debuff, which is really good. The downfalls of her is that she does have 8 debuffs with her skill 3, and with innate 15% resistance being a thing, she's going to get resisted at least once, if not multiple times, and odds are it's going to be on the most important one, because that's the way things seem to work sometimes. But when she lands her skills, she is borderline broken. She can be so strong. She can turn cycle, she can stun, she can slow the enemy team. She boosts herself, getting insane amount of turns. She's incredibly underrated for what she is, and especially in RTA. Now, if you don't do RTA, should you build her? Probably not. So I will say that she's not really great outside of RTA, but in RTA, she's top tier. Moving on, we have DN, who is top tier everywhere. So DN, very strong. She's got a cleanse, she's got a crit buff, she's got a shield, she's got an attack buff, she self-turn cycles, you name it, she does it. Crazy strong. The only problem with her is that her heals are very weak, but other than that, she's a great support unit. And I really like DN, and you should build her. I wish mine had molas. If I had extra molas, she's another one that I would give them to. Up next, we have Lulu, one of, if not the best, Wyvern unit, because the defense breaks being so reliable. She also has a defense buff, so you could use her in things like RTA and Guild War and Arena. She's also very good in Raid because of the defense buff. Similar to Slow, I feel like defense buff is very underrated, but I think she's insanely strong. I'm surprised more people don't use her. Everyone who does use her loves her, myself included. I use her a lot on my baby account, and she is kind of jack of all trades. She can give you more damage and increase your survivability at the same time, which not many units can do. Up next, we have Elena, and Elena has become one of the most annoying units in the game for defense. She is all over the place in RTA. She's all over the place in arena defense. She could arguably be considered, if she was a little more flashy, she could move up the tier list, right? She's also got a cleanse. I used her a lot in Abyss 90 to 100. I used her in a lot of those floors. I found her utility amazing. And she's got decent base speed, all around fantastic unit. Definitely a must build if you won't regret building her. And she doesn't need too much of a Mola investment. I don't think mine actually has any Molas, which is why I don't really use her much in RTA, but you can still use her elsewhere, even without any. Up next is Crowl, and I actually moved Crow down one on this list, especially now that RTA is out. I really don't think he's good in RTA. People constantly pick him in RTA, and I do agree that the defense buff is strong, but I feel like the rest of his kit just isn't unless you're going up against AoEs, so maybe he'd be good against like Bellin teams. But outside of that, I just don't see the utility there. He's fantastic for Wyvern. He's the best Wyvern tank in the game because you can run him and not have to run a healer, which is really nice. You run a 3-man, no healer team if you run him as your tank. He can also be used really, really easily in Guild War. He's a fantastic Guild War unit. I just don't think he has a place in RTA or in Arena, which is why he moves down a little bit. But keep in mind, S tier, still OP. He still is best at what he does and is very, very, very useful, and I'm super happy to have him. Really good unit there. Moving on to the fire units, and we've already talked about it a ton, but there aren't a lot of fire units on this list moving forward just because of the fact that they're not really meta. So the ones that are on this list moving forward are definitely the best fire units in the game. First up, we have Fire Ken, a really strong warrior with defense breaks and a lot of sustainability. People build him up over 20k HP, and before, I mean, he's, let me see, he's probably the 3rd or 4th best bruiser in the game. So if you're a big fan of bruiser play, then you will really enjoy Ken, and I think he's definitely worth the build. Next up is Kieran, the most annoying unit in the game, I think. He's not necessarily great, but he can solo squishy teams, and he has that immortal. And if he catches you off guard, he can do a lot of nonsense, especially if he starts proccing basket every single turn. So he is a little bit RNG based, and he can be locked down, but against the right comps, he can also solo you. So keep that in mind. Very, very strong. He also has the best base speed in the game, so for that reason alone, I think he would move into S tier. You could maybe argue he'd be higher, but he doesn't really have a use outside of RTA and Guild War. So that's kind of why he is where he is. But very strong unit if you have him, build him. Up next, we're going to have Ball and Cezanne. Now, last quarter, we had Ball and Cezanne and Tenebria together. Unfortunately for him, Tenebria got a buff, and he did not. He's still insanely strong, but now that Tenebria got another buff, he's just going to be left behind. He does have an AoE slow, defense break, and heal block, all in the same skill, which is crazy. And you can put him on Crown. He can do good damage as well. I mean, all around spectacular unit, but a lot of people don't like his what his character art looks like. And now that Tenebria is just flat out better, he's probably going to fall behind, but that doesn't take away from how good he is. He's still spectacular. If you have him and you don't have Tenebria, he's definitely a must build. If you have Tenebria, then it's an easy decision now. Building her over him is definitely the option. And finally, for the fire units, we have Tamarin. And Tamarin's been a very well argued point on this channel. I've had her at S ever since the beginning, and at first people hated me because I didn't have her at double S, and now I think it's become pretty popular that she's more in that S range as less and less people are using Tamai's area now. So we're going to leave her at S. I think that's where she belongs. She's very good for Raid. She's good for some of the Hall of Trials. And she can still be used in Guild War and Arena, but definitely less so than she used to be. I just think her Arena offense is outshined by a lot of things right now, and so she's going to stay at S tier, but she still is probably one of the best healers in the game anyway. And in terms of utility, with the attack bar boost and the attack buff and the cleanse, she's definitely top tier. And if you have her, you definitely need to build her. And she doesn't even require that much of a mullet investment, which is really nice. Moving on to the wind units. Oh my god, I feel like I've been talking forever. What are we at here? 50 minutes? Alright, we're going to try and keep this under an hour, but no promises. Moving on to the win units, we have Hildred. We talked about him earlier with his speed imprint. That combined with his AoE nuke potential makes him very strong in Judge Kize nuke teams. You go Oxlots, Kize, Hildred, Sidam, and you can kill almost any team in the game with that combination. Basically, he ensures you get first turn, and he gets self-boosted every time somebody dies. And if he kills somebody, he gets another turn, which makes him great for cleaning up and great for giving you first turn. All around, spectacular for unit for that. And if you're early game, you can use him as your farmer as well. Those are pretty much his two main uses. I also see him in RTA as an imprint, just because people have him imprinted. If they need to go first, he's a nice little sneaky last pick. Moving on, we have Euphine, one of the hardest hitting single target damage dealers in the game. If you have a buff on you, she is potentially the best Belena counter right now in the game because she can just one-shot a Belena, which is really nice. Seeing as how Belena is broken and needs to be fixed, it's nice to have something that can beat her in Guild War. So definitely consider Euphine. Her damage is really strong. She's got 2 strips, she's got a stun, she's got a defense break, she's got an AoE silence, she's got a self-attack buff, self-speed buff. And she's relatively tanky in terms of her base stats, so all in all, spectacular unit, one of the best in the game. Moving on, we have Lilibet, and Lilibet moved up the list this month, or this quarter, because she is basically mandatory now. If you don't have a Lilibet, you're probably struggling in Guild War. That's probably what's going on. You need a Lilibet for Guild War right now just to make your life a lot easier against a Hildred's. Another one of the broken tier units. It's funny because I was talking about it in our guild chat on the Discord, and one of those things where, people resisted building her. They're like, is she really that good? I don't really need another damage dealer. And now that they built her, they're like, wow, I don't know how I ever lived without her. So if you have her, definitely build her. She doesn't need incredible gear. She doesn't need too many molas. I still think you need to skill up her skill 3. But other than that, it's not too bad. She's easy to build, and you can burn into her skill 3. You can, I would say the majority of Hildred defenses, you can just Oxlots Lilibet them, and that's it. You win. It's game over. So if you're having a hard time with Hildred defenses, Lilibet is the queen of Guild War right now. And you can also use her against other comps that have a lot of revives in them. You can also use her in RTA. You can use her against evasion comps now that she has built-in hit chance. She's got a lot of utility, and she has big damage across the board. I love my Lilibet, and I use her everywhere. She's literally in my Arena offense, my Guild War offense, and my RTA offense. RTA comp. Moving on, we have Destina. Now, you could argue with Acades, Angelica, Tamarin, and Destina, who's the best healer. I think in terms of pure healing, it's probably Destina, since she does heal with all 3 skills. She also has an attack bar boost and an AoE cleanse. I think she's really, really good. I think she's underrated compared to where most people see her being, just because her heals aren't like full heal. But in terms of pure heals, she's one of the best, and that can't be denied, especially with all the debuffs out there. And if Dizzy ever gets into RTA, I think you'll see Destina even more. But she's really good. She's also a very good Belena counter as well, if you're having a hard time with Belena's debuffs. Moving on, we have Violet. Violet, another one paired with Fat Cat over there. The evasion is strong. He can be super annoying, or he can do nothing at all. So I can't justify moving him up on the list, just because sometimes he's really underwhelming. But when he's strong, he's OP. So I guess for RTA purposes, you'd say he'd be very niche and a good last pick. Otherwise, he's mainly a Guild War unit, but can also be really good in Raid. I actually have him in my normal Raid team, because surprisingly, he camps really well. I have a 46 morale Raid comp that I use, so he's a big part of it. He's my main damage dealer in that comp, which is kind of nice. Moving on, we have Sid. Now, Sid is one of those units that I talked about earlier with the speed-based damage. He does insane damage with his skill 3 and his skill 1, and he's got a defense break and a self-speed buff. You name it, he does it. He can solo many comps. I've used him non-stop in Guild War. He also has a speed imprint in top of it. He is insane if you want to build a speed-based damage dealer. I have him ranked ahead of Assassin Sid. Some people might argue the opposite. I think just because of his speed imprint, he wins out on that and his increased damage. No, he doesn't steal souls, but I think just all around he's better. Moving on to the Light Darks, we're going to lead off with Spez. We talked about Lytica and her extinction. Spez is right there. I put them on the same tier, not because they're the same. I think they're very different units. If you don't have Lilibet built, you can use him as your Lilibet, but I think he's best used in like a slightly different comp, like in a comp with a lot of CC and more of a control comp. The nice thing is, if the unit's stunned, he can kill them even if he has an HP boots or speed boots. He doesn't need to be built all damage. So you could build him tanky, you could build him fast, you can build him many different ways and still have him be able to one-shot anybody. Also, if you pair him with Melissa, he can technically one-shot 2 people at once, which is really strong as well. And he's got an AoE stun. I really like Spez. I think he's top tier. If I had a Spez on my main, I would build him as well as my Lilibet and just use them a little bit differently. And it's always nice to have a backup in case your Lilibet happens to die in Guild War. Or if your Spez happens to die, you have one or the other backing up. I think they're both very strong. Moving on, DJ Besar. DJ Besar got a lot of hate when he first came out, and I think rightfully so. But now that people have started investing in him, he is slowly moving up the list. He has a cleanse and a heal and immunity and attack bar boost. All around, one of the better boosters in the game. Unfortunately, his base speed's a little slow, so he's hard pressed to outspeed things like Lytica or like a Sid or a Cerise or anything like that. But he is a great Cerise counter because he would cleanse first and then he would boost after that, so it'd be really strong. I kind of wish I had him. I would definitely use him if I did. Moving on, we have C. Armin. In terms of damage reduction, even after her nerf, I think she still qualifies. She's still crazy strong. I've faced her in RTA, and I'm always surprised how much damage she mitigates. Very strong tank. Definitely build her if you have her. Don't underestimate her just because she got a nerf, because she is really strong. Speaking of strong tanks that people are underestimating, we have ML Tywin. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be surprised to see him this high on the list. I actually talked to a few people about it and asked their opinion, because I don't actually have him. He's one of the only units that I've never physically been able to use. And I always thought he was really good whenever I faced him and whenever I looked at his kit, but I wanted to get their opinion. And everybody that's built him and used him, every single person agreed with me on where I had him on the list. So kind of surprising, but I think the people that are hating on him haven't built him or molded him or aren't using him in the right spots, because I think he is incredibly underrated and actually has a really good kit. I mean, taking a quick second just to peek over, like, any unit that has a provoke, a slow, and can remove souls, easy to put counter on, he has a team cleanse. I mean, quite literally everything he does is beneficial for your team. So yeah, he's not flashy, and he's not a big damage dealer, but on top of all of that, he also does decent damage on his revenges. He can be really scary going up against a good Tywin. Final unit for the light units in the S tier is going to be Queen Charlotte. Queen Charlotte making her debut on the list because she did just come out. I have built her up. Mine is plus 13. I really enjoy her. Her damage on her skill 1 isn't quite what we were hoping it was going to be. Although mine does still need 2 more skill ups, which is another 15%, which will be nice. You can build her a lot of different ways. She is somewhat hard to gear, so keep that in mind. But once she's geared well, she can do really good damage and perform really well for your team, especially with her self-sustain, her low cooldown, her damage reduction. But she does need to be plus 15, so she does require a big Mola investment and a big gear investment. But if you are willing to give her that, she will be one of your preferred units for sure. Moving on to the dark units now, we're going to lead off with Cdom. Cdom, probably the best enabler in the game. She does great damage. She's not the best damage dealer in the game. I think that still has to go to like a Watcher Sheree or a Eufiend, depending on who you're using and how you're using them. But with really good gear, she can be one of the top damage dealers in the game. But what makes her good is that you can build her slow with high damage, and she will cut because of the crits. I know people that run their CDOM at like 120 speed, and she always gets second turn after the boost. And on top of that, she crit buffs, making building anybody that's going after her easier, and she attack bar boosts. So the team I've been using in RTA has her with ML Lytica and basically anybody else. So my ML Lytica goes, she gets 4 crits, CDOM goes, and boosts again. With the Lytica boost and the CDOM boost, as long as CDOM kills somebody, my entire rest of the team goes and I don't get cut. That's amazing. So that ability to be like, I have like I think my Watcher Sheree is 113 speed, and my Watcher Sheree almost never gets cut at 113 speed just with those two. Granted, I'm running Sachet on my Lytica in order to not get cut, but still the fact that CDOM can go with the crit buff and just be able to give your entire team another turn before the enemy goes makes her insanely strong. You can make an argument that she should be higher on this list, and I would not argue with you. Moving on, we have ML Ken, and surprisingly, ML Ken is moving down this list. So maybe about 6 months ago, he was triple S. Then last quarter, I had him at double S, and now I've got him at single S. And the reason being because so many things counter him. He's just not that scary anymore. Like, he's scary if you're running a Judge Kize team, but I feel like a lot of people aren't running Judge Kize teams anymore. He can be scary as a niche pick in RTA. He could be, you know what I mean? Like, he's not that top tier anymore. He's still very, very good, and in the right situation, he can solo a match for you. That's great. But I just don't think that he's quite as good as some of the units in the double S tier. Moving on, speaking of units that aren't quite as good as some of the units in the double S tier, we have Specter Ginebra. So this is an interesting one because I do use her a lot in RTA, and I'm a little bit biased. Her buff was enormous. Now, she moved up 2 tiers. She used to be in B tier. I used to just hate on how bad she was because she did no damage and she had no place in the game. But a lot's happened since then. First of all, Hell Raid is now a thing where we need new comps and your morale doesn't matter anymore. And she is very, very good for the Hell Raid Queen. She's very, very good for, I forget the name of it, the flies on the bottom right. And she's very, very good for the top right-hand boss as well. So 3 of the 5 bosses she is super strong for in Hell Raid. Also in RTA, now that RTA is a thing, that would have moved her up 1 tier already just by itself. And I think her buff moves her up the 2nd tier, allowing her to hit 2 targets, and not allowing her to get revenged is, I think, the biggest thing. Anti-revenge skills are really strong right now because there's so much revenge going on. Like, she's another one who can now counter ML Ken, as well as Queen Charlotte. So 2 recent counters to ML Ken are the reasons why he moved down 1. But some people I'm sure will argue that she should still be lower, and I can kind of see the argument because her damage is super underwhelming early in fights in terms of PvP. So, like, it might take you 3 or 4 hits to kill Belena, which by then Belena's revenged 2 or 3 times and destroyed your entire team. She does, however, have a stun, and later in the fights her damage gets really good. That's why she's so good in Raid, is because she gets her stacks before she gets to the boss. So you don't have to worry about that really. She's just going to delete units once she's at the boss, which is really nice. Although that might change once you start using the portal to get there. I'm not really sure. We'll have to see. You might want to run around and kill a couple people first just to make sure you get your stacks. But other than that, she is really strong. The anti-revenge, I think, is amazing, and she's incredibly flexible. I think that's her main thing. Not as a pure damage dealer, because I don't think I hate her damage. Many times on the stream, I complain about how weak her skill 1 and her skill 3 damage are, but her utility now, being able to burn into her and attack multiple units, do some crowd control, Be able to cycle her skill 3 as well. All are really, really important things. And I think that's the part about her that's underestimated. And that's why she gets ranked so highly, is because her utility is insanely high, despite her damage not being great. I'm sure there's other people as well that'll say she should be higher, but I think they only see her skill 3 damage once it's ramped up, and they don't see how bad it is the rest of the fight. So that's why she doesn't go higher on the list, at least not yet. Next up, we have BBK. So BBK, one of the best AoE nukers in the game. She can also counter a Hildred, which is nice. That auto earns you a place on this list just because you can counter a Hildred. And she has some sustain, can be really scary in RTA as well. And all around great unit. I actually used her in my bottom left Hell Raid clear as well. I think there are maybe better options for that, but I think she'd be good there as well. All around great unit. Hits really hard. She's got self-sustain. I really like her. I think she's one of the best AoE nukes in the game. Probably the second best, I would say, if you don't count Belena. Finally, for the S tier, we have Assassin Collie. Assassin Collie, another speed-based damage dealer, and one of my favorite units in the game. I absolutely love her. She's got huge damage. She's got a stun. She's got built-in stealth, built-in speed buff, built-in attack buff. She's absolutely incredible for Guild War. You can also use her ultra successfully in RTA as long as you're not worried about Belena. Belena is a really hard counter for Assassin Collie, but outside of that, incredibly strong. That's the one reason she's probably not higher on the list, is because of Belena. But we will have to see how that develops moving forward. Otherwise, she is one of the top units in the game, and I think if you build her, you will really enjoy her. Just keep in mind, big Mola investment. She does need to be plus 15 in order to be good, and she needs pretty good gear as well. All right, moving on to the double S tier. I can already see where I'm going to get in trouble for this list, but we're going to go through it anyway. Tywin, definitely double S. He's the only, well, he's now the second, one of two AoE 100% defense breaks, with Belena being the other. But you can burn into him and run him on Aureus, and he's the number one unit for a Besar Tywin cleave in terms of AoE defense breaks. He's also got a lot of utility, great in Wyvern. Wyvern obviously giving you a bump on this list, which is why Sigrid is up this high as well. If Wyvern wasn't a thing, both these units would probably be S tier, but Wyvern being by far the most important dungeon in the game, you just have to rank that higher than you would anybody else. Tywin being one of the most flexible utility units in the game. He kind of does it all. He's got a strip, a attack buff, a defense break. He can hold Aureus, he can hold Adamant Shield. He can kind of do it all. Very, very strong. I really like him, and if you have him, you should be super excited about it. Up next is Sigrid, and granted, she probably doesn't look like she belongs on this tier. She probably looks like she belongs more in the S tier, considering we have MLKen and Specter Ginebra and Cdom all in single S. And I can accept that argument and maybe even move her down one. That being said, she is probably the best Wyvern unit in the game. She can one-shot the Wyvern boss if built properly. And she can get 3 turns on her turn 1, potentially killing up to 3 units in one shot as a single target damage dealer, which nobody else can do. I've used her unmolled in RTA and still beat legend rank players just because she's so strong and she catches people off guard. So maybe she shouldn't be up this high, but you could also argue that she should, just because she is the best Wyvern nuker in the best nuker in the most important dungeon, and also has top tier damage, one of the best damage single target damage dealers in the game. So keep that in mind. Don't rage too hard. I'm not even a big fan of her art style, but I just think she's insanely strong, and people underestimate the hell out of her. But I can definitely see, if you want her at S rank, I can see why she would be at S rank. But I do think she should be ahead of Chloe Luna Kize, so maybe between S and double S, but I wouldn't go any lower than that. Finally, for the double S water tier, we have Dizzy. So Dizzy, the only reason she's not triple S is probably because she's not an RTA. Can't be used in RTA, at least not yet. If she's ever allowed an RTA, I hope they balance her first because she'll be super annoying. But she's still very strong. She's used a lot in Abyss all the way through. If you have her and you haven't done Abyss yet, then definitely do it. If you're seeing this video in the future and they come out with a rerun of her, definitely summon for her because you'll be happy you did. Her debuffs are way stronger than anybody thought they were going to be when they first came out. And at least at the time of this video, she is still somewhat broken for things like TOA and Abyss. So keep that in mind. And she's still used in Guild War and in Arena as well. Moving on to the fire units, we have Lilius, who sadly replaced my Cecilia as the top fire tank in the game. Although that being said, you could argue that they're much closer now with the Cecilia buff. I don't particularly really like Lilius, but I know a lot of people do and use her very successfully. She's got a great kit. She's got an auto team up on skill 1. She's got a cleanse. She's got a 2-turn provoke. She's got her own self attack bar manipulation. She can be crazy strong. There's a few units, like if you have a Robbie and her and you pair them together, it's just a broken combination. Her and Flurry as well is another broken combination. She just pairs very well with a lot of things, and add to that the sustain and potential damage. If you build her with a damage comp, you can use her a lot of different ways, and she definitely deserves her place in the SS tier. Finally, the last fire unit on this list at all is Tenebria. And I think Tenebria, it could be argued, is now the best fire unit in the game. She was already top tier before her buff, and they randomly decided to buff her again because they wanted people to use her, I guess, and people weren't. So they buffed her again, and now she's borderline broken. She's one of those units that she might even move up again next quarter. We'll have to see how it goes as more people build her and more people mola her. I think the mola shortage isn't doing her justice because in RTA, she's crazy. We built her up with no molas, used her in RTA, and she still dominated even without any molas. So, and that's in top 20 RTA. We were beating everybody with her, and she had no molas yet. So, obviously team dependent, but if you build her right, she is going to be absolutely dominant for you. And if you have her, you should be super excited and definitely consider molaing her up, even though she's a fire unit. Moving on to the wind units. We're almost done, I promise. Moving on to the wind units, we have Charles. Charles is still annoying, and Elbrus is still a thing. Therefore, while he's broken, he will always be top tier. One of the best units in the game, just because of Elbrus. I think they need to fix the fact that he can proc his smash on a revenge and on a team up. They realized that was a broken mechanic with Alexia, and they nerfed Alexia before Alexia was released so that she couldn't do that proc. So they said it was a problem, but then they allowed Charles to keep the same mechanic even though they admitted it was broken. I'm hoping at some point that gets fixed, hopefully next balance patch. I think that's all they have to do, and he's fine. Just don't let him do his nonsense where he can like revenge kill your entire team. I had a single target team. I took 3 single target attacks that weren't against him, and he revenge killed all 3 of those units. So I hadn't moved, and my entire team -1 was dead. He had killed 3 of my 4 units, and they hadn't even moved yet, which is ridiculous. That shouldn't be a thing, right? You can revenge once. You shouldn't be able to revenge 6 times before you move. That's just too much. I'm sorry. So not necessarily him, but maybe the interaction with him and Elbrus. I'm not sure what the combination is going to be. I think part of the problem is that, in that he can proc his skill 2 off of his skill 1's revenge or team up. But I think part of it too is the fact that Elbrus stacks, and an AoE attack is not just 1 Elbrus proc. It's 3 Elbrus procs plus his revenge rate. So I think it's just too much. Something there's got to give, and I'm not sure what it's going to be, but hopefully they fix it. Moving on, we have Izaria, and Izaria, one of my favorite units in the game. She's definitely top tier. She used to be SSS, and I did move her down 1, which I know a lot of people will be happy about. They don't think she's top tier. I still think she's got to be at least double S. I have shown in a few videos recently how strong she can be in RTA as well. She's still used in Arena, in Guild War, in RTA, in Abyss. You can use her anywhere. She is the best, by far, utility unit in the game. She is similar to how I was talking about Sidon being an enabler. Isaiah is the same thing. You can go double immunity, you can go double nukes, you can go double revive, you can go double anything. On top of that, she has a strip defense break and buff block, which means she can neutralize units like Ruel. It's crazy. She can do it all. She's amazing. I love her. Next up, we have Alexia, and I don't know how people feel about Alexia. I know everyone that jumps into my stream has kind of realized her potential because I use her a lot in RTA, and everyone that's built her says they love her. I think a lot of people don't have her because after the nerf, they gave her back, and then they didn't summon for her again, and are now regretting it. But Alexia is definitely top tier. She is next to Euphine, maybe even tied with Euphine, but potentially the best Belena counter in the game. And seeing as how Belena is the most broken unit in the game right now, you definitely need counters, and Alexia is amazing for that. She's got a defense break. She's got AoE defense buff. She has an AoE strip. She has a proc into a second turn after her defense break, which can one-shot units. I have one-shot Seaside Belenas that had damage reduction with my Alexia. Crazy strong. I'm going to put a video on her specifically. I just have a lot of other things I have to make videos on, but she is super, super strong. Don't underestimate her. She's one of the best units in the game, and probably the second best bruiser in the game next to Robbie. Moving on to the light dark units, we have Judge Kize, the best AoE nuke in the game by far. She can nuke with her skill 2 and her skill 3, and she has a skill reset and a strip. Still one of the best arena offenses in the game, Oxlot's into Kize. It's a little harder now because people have spent so much time trying to counter it, but she's still incredibly OP. And now people are starting to explore slightly different builds with her as well. Very, very strong. If you have her, congratulations. Next up, Faithless Lytic Ax. Potentially my favorite unit in the game right now. I'm really enjoying her. She's got an AoE strip. She's got a boost. She's also got a skill reset for those of you coming from Summoner's War. Think Ganymede. She's also got a blind on her skill 1, which is really strong. Her whole kit is just incredible. Plus the fact she's got good base speed. She's built fast. She's crazy. She's one of the best units in the game by far. If you have her, definitely build her. I use her in every single Guild War, almost every single arena offense, and every single RTA fight. So she is the PvP queen right now, outside of course, Seaside Belena. Next up, Maid Chloe. Maid Chloe I had at Triple S last quarter, but with RTA now a thing, I did drop her down 1. I think she's still one of the best units in the game at Double S, but I think Ruel just slightly outshines her because Ruel has the highest base defense in the game. We'll get to her a little bit more in a bit, but with defense being so much prevalent due to HP decrease over time, I think that Maid Chloe just kind of drops out of that top 5 just barely. So I did move her to Double S. I still think she's incredible though. If you have her, congratulations. She's one of the best units in the game, and I use mine all the time. Moving on to the dark units. Whew, I'm getting winded. We have Fallen Cecilia, the best tank in the game, bar none. AoE skill prevent on top of single target provoke, on top of damage reduction, on top of regular shields, on top of being able to hold Aureus Aureus or Adamant Shield. She's insane. One of the most used units on arena defense next to a Hildred. And yeah, very, very good. The best tank in the game if you have her. Definitely build her. Top tier PvP. Up next, we have Champion Zerato. Zerato, you guys have all seen him by now. The video I put out of him soloing A11. People have used him in Raid. People use him in Lab. People use him in Abyss. People use him in TOA. People use him in Guild War. People use him in Arena. People use him in RTA. He's used everywhere. I would say him and Belena are the two most flexible units in the game in terms of usage, because you can literally just use him everywhere. And if you didn't know, his molas make a big difference on his damage. I would definitely recommend molaing him if you can, because he goes from a good unit to a great unit once he's moled. Final unit for the dark units before we get in the top 5 is going to be Oxlots. Oxlots, again, one of the best supports in the game. The 100% attack bar boost with an attack buff just makes him the easiest way to do Guild War, Arena, or RTA. If you can have the speed gear and can pull it off to get him to go first, you probably win. There's a reason why everybody's going crazy trying to summon an Oxlights right now that doesn't already have one. So if you have one, congrats. If you have two, don't feed the second one. I actually have two triple S Oxlots just in case one of them dies in Guild War. Not a bad idea to have a second one. All right, moving on to triple S tier. You'll notice we have this a little bit broken up. That is because I have Besar and Ruel as the only two units in triple S. Besar being the number 1 strip in the game. He's got the AoE strip with the reduction, and you can burn into it to make it irresistible, which makes him crazy strong. Plus, his skill 2 has an AoE blind and an AoE attack break, and you can put him on Crown, which will give him CC as well. He doesn't have the best base speed, but it's okay. If you get him first turn, he will probably win the fight for you. So he can almost solo fights just because of his crowd control. If he gets lucky, he can solo fights. So keep that in mind. He is the best strip in the game right now, and if you have him, congratulations. Moving on, we did touch on Ruel a little bit. The number 1 revive in the game and the Topsail Weaver. She does have the highest base defense in the game, moving her up to the triple S tier. And crazy strong for RTA because she does heal with all 3 skills and late in fights with the highest base defense. Even if her HP drops, she's still hard to kill because she has the highest base defense and the base defense doesn't change. So in tanky, long-lasting fights, Ruel definitely has the upper hand. All right, so that's it. We did all the tiers up to triple S, right? All right, let's take a moment. I know we're an hour and 20 minutes in, and I was trying to do this under an hour, but as you can tell, I'm a little bit winded. I've been talking as fast as I can, but there are so many 4 and 5 star units that I just can't go any faster. Hopefully you guys appreciate the time that goes into these kind of videos, and I hope at least some of you stuck around to the end instead of just looking at the list. Before we get into these last 3 units, I will take the list and I will post it in my Discord. So I'll post a link to the Discord in the description below. I will also post a link to my stream below. We do stream almost every day except for Saturdays. So come check us out. I stream from usually about 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time until about midnight or later, depending on how many people are there and how things are going. But yeah, come check us out in both venues. I will post a copy of the tier list both in stream and in the Discord for you guys to look at if you just want to look at the hard copy. And finally, the top 3 units in the game. These 3 units are above triple S tier because they're broken. These are units that need to be fixed, and I think everybody can agree with this. These are units that are so strong that they just can't really be countered very well right now. Whoa, messed that up, didn't I? There we go. These are units that, if they don't get fixed, will ruin RTA for Epic 7 and make it not what they want it to be. So leading things off, the most broken unit in the game by far is Seaside Belena. And it's not just her, it's the fact that you can pair her with Rengar's Drink, and even if she doesn't crit, or even if it's against an opposite element and she misses, she can still one-shot stuff, which is ridiculous. Like, the fact that she can go AoE Revenge, which shouldn't be a thing to begin with, but AoE Revenge with Defense Break into skill 3 into another Revenge, and you only took potentially one single target attack in between there. And she did 3 AoE nukes in a row, and you only got to do one single target attack, and she doesn't even have good base speed or anything. Like she could have no speed on her, and that could potentially be a thing where that happens. Those 3 attacks back to back to back, if you don't have immunity up and she lands defense break, no matter how tanky your team is, you are dead. So yes, there's ways to counter her. You can U-Fiend her, you can Seed on her. You can bring tanky comps like Alexia into her. But like if you don't focus her and deal with her right away, because of how broken she is, especially with drink, she will just delete you. And I think at this point everyone knows how strong she is. I don't need to go into detail. But I hope she does get balanced. She doesn't need to get nerfed to the ground. I don't want her to get nerfed to the ground. She's a limited unit. I know they don't want to nerf limited units, but I think she's so strong. When people that have her and wailed for her are saying she needs a nerf, I think you just got to do it. Don't offer recalls. Just balance her. Don't consider it a nerf, but balance her, please. Moving up next, we have Arbiter Vildred. Arbiter Vildred, the second most broken unit in the game, potentially third. I would call it almost a draw between these two. I think the main issue with him isn't that he does good damage. It's twofold. One, it's that he revives with plus 100% attack bar. He doesn't revive to 100% attack bar. He revives, so say you just started the fight. He's got 200 base speed, 160 base speed, whatever he's got, and you kill him. He then, if he's at like 75% attack bar, so say your booster's at 100%, he's at like 75. You've got a big speed gap on him. You boost somebody up to 100, still he's at 75. Then you kill him. Now, essentially, he jumps to 175, so you can't even cut him in between. I think he either has to boost to 100%, or to 99% would be ideal. And on top of all that, in case that wasn't already broken, that he comes back with plus 100% attack bar, plus full focus to give him extra boosted damage, plus potentially greater attack buff from a basket proc that seems to proc 100% of the time when he uses it. But on top of all of that, he also has an AoE blind that I swear to God is guaranteed to land. I've never seen him ever miss an AoE blind. It's always 100%. I have units with like my Faithless Lytic that I run with 115 effectiveness on my Lytic. She misses her skill 3 on low res units constantly. But A. Vildred always lands blind, and I'm sure he has no effectiveness. I don't understand what's going on, but Smilegate, it's broken, and you have to fix it. Like the fact that he can come back after potentially nuking your entire team twice, and if you happen to survive it, you're now AoE blinded? Like, come on. That's overboard. And finally, the last unit on the list, one of my favorite units in the whole game when she's on my team, is Apocalypse Robbie. Robbie is amazing. She's always been amazing. She was amazing before the buff. Unfortunately, they buffed her, and now she's broken, and now they have to do something about it. Because people are bringing like 4 revivers into RTA, and Robbie is so strong that she can one-shot on revenge anybody. She's the only unit in the game that can, other than Charles, but that's just because Charles can go twice. Other than Charles going twice, she's the only unit in the game that can revenge one-shot somebody 3 times in a row, deleting your entire team only on revenges. If it's not allowed with Charles, it shouldn't be allowed with her either. It's ridiculously broken. What makes her better than Charles is not only that, but then she has this 100% revive, 100% attack bar revive, where the unit gets to automatically get a turn. So she's reviving, say people will run like her, Ruel, Maid Chloe, and Arbiter Vildred. You kill somebody. You can't kill Robbie because she's got 25k HP and she self-heals and probably has damage reduction because you probably have Draco Plate on her. And so you can't kill her. She's impossible to kill. And she has this revive where she then revives one of the other revivers who automatically gets a turn, revives one of the other revivers, and you're now dead. It's ridiculously broken. They've got to fix her as well. I think all three of those units, for RTA purposes, need to be balanced. You don't see a Robbie as much in Arena or Guild War defense because it's not on manual. On manual is where she's mostly broken. In terms of things outside of RTA, it's Hildred and Belena that need to be balanced the most. They are both in 90% of the top 100 arena defenses. They're both first two picks, always in RTA. If you want to make RTA an esport, which is I'm sure their goal, those things need to be fixed. But otherwise, that is your tier list for today, guys. I hope you guys appreciated it. Again, don't forget to join the Discord to get access to the list itself if you just want to look at a hard copy. Also, join us on stream. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this video to let me know you want to see more. This video coming out at the end of March means the next one will come out, the next tier list will come out at the end of June. So stay tuned to that. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.